بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. In this short bayan we begin in the name of Allah Ta'ala. We send the best of prayers and blessings on the best of creation, the best of examples, the best of teachers, the best of men, the Prophet of mercy, and the one who erased the disobedience of Allah Ta'ala from this earth. We send the best of supplications, prayers, and blessings on the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. After having said that, I remind you all, as I remind myself, to not leave this dunya except in a state of taqwa, that is, love and fear of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. In today's short bayan, I wanted to focus on, or begin with, the observation that many of us, when we're children, we have a tendency to ask many questions, right? Imagine yourself as a child, if you were with your parents, how many questions did you ask? Or even now, as a grown-up, if you have children, how many questions do your own children ask you in a day? And what's interesting is that you'll find that the younger the child, normally, the more questions that they ask. So somebody who's in preschool, they will ask many questions. As they get older and they get into elementary school and middle school, the questions start to decrease. And by the time they get to high school or older, there's no questions at all. And this is something we're thinking about, that why is it that it appears that as we get older, we ask less? And the related reflection is that why is it, if we're asking less, is there a connection between that and our interest for learning, our interest to use our intellect, our interest, to ponder, to be inquisitive, to be curious? It seems like all of these things, they go away with age. So Allah Ta'ala, He mentions in the Holy Quran, وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ أَوْ نَعْقِلُ مَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. In a beautiful ayah in Surah Al-Mulk, Allah Ta'ala, He mentions, He says, talking about the people of Jahannam. And these are people who on that day, right, they will be in a state of tremendous remorse. In a state of tremendous remorse, they will scream out, وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ أَوْ نَعْقِلُ, that if we had been a people, when we lived in the dunya, we had been a people that had simply listened. We had used the blessing that Allah Ta'ala gave us to listen. أَوْ نَعْقِلُ, or we had used our intellect or our mind. مَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ, that we would not have been people of Jahannam. In other words, the people of Jahannam will say, if we had used that intellect, the inquisitiveness, the thoughtfulness, the desire to seek and learn that Allah Ta'ala gave us, we would not have been people of Jahannam. But we did not use the intellect and the faculties that Allah Ta'ala gave us. This ayah is one of the strongest evidences that point to the importance, right, not just of learning, but the concept or idea that as a Muslim, we should have a passion to learn. We should want to seek to learn. We should always be striving, be curious, be inquisitive, and not a day goes by except that we are seeking some type of beneficial knowledge. The dalil for that is this ayah of the Quran. Now, to take it a step further, if we look to the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have a very beautiful story. And this story is described in the Sunan of Abi Dawood. The narrator of the hadith is Jabir, the son of Abdullah, radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. And Jabir, he says that kunna fi safar, he says that we were making a journey. We were traveling. Kunna fi safar. فَأَصَابَ رَجُلٌ أو فَأَصَابَ رَجُلًا, that there was a man who was traveling with us, and this man, he was afflicted بِحَجَرٍ. This man, during the journey, he got hit with a rock right in the head. That head injury was severe, and he had to be treated and he had to be bandaged. And so, because they're traveling the hardships of traveling. Of course, one of the most difficult things, I mean, for us, none of us travel really. If we travel, we go to hotels, we stay at hotels. This is travel for us. But in the time of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, when they were traveling, they had to go, they're in the wild, they're in rugged terrain. There's the absence of food and drink, etc., etc. So this one Sahabi, he has a head injury and he's a traveler. It's a very difficult situation, and he has a bandage over it. So at night, finally, when his wounds are stable and he's able to rest, the Sahaba, they go to sleep. This Sahabi, at that time, he has a wet dream. He has a wet dream. And we know that the ruling for a person who has a wet dream, right, is that before they can establish their prayers, they must make ghusl. So in the morning hours, before they make Salat al-Fajr, this man, he says to the companions, هَلْ تَجِدُونَ لِي رُخْصَةً, that is there an alternative to me making ghusl? Is there some way that I can establish my salah without making ghusl? Now he's asking this question because one is the night before he had a wet dream, and we know the ruling for that. The second problem with this man is he has a head injury. So this is why he says, هَلْ تَجِدُونَ لِي رُخْصَةً. The Sahaba at that time, they said, لا نجد لك رخصة, that there is no rukhsah for you. In other words, there is no alternative for you. You have to make ghusl. This is the hukum, this is the ruling. So what does this man do? Is he goes and he makes ghusl. Now, a short time after that, what happens if a person, they have a wound, and that wound, it gets some bacteria in it. Sometimes you hear about it now, infection happens. And if it's an infection in the head, it's a serious infection. This man, what happens is he dies. He dies during the journey. So Jabir radiallahu ta'ala, he goes back, when they go back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam into Medina Munawwara, they approach the Prophet sallallahu, and he was not on this journey. And they tell the whole story of what happened. They said, we were traveling, the man got hit with a rock, we bandaged his wounds, he went to bed at night, he had a wet dream, he came up in the morning, and he says that, hey, is there any other alternative other than making ghusl? And we told him no, or some of the people said no. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he became very upset that day. He became very upset. He said, قَتَلُوهُ. He said, قَتَلُوهُ. Those people who told that man that there was no rukhsah, قَتَلُوهُ. They literally killed that man. They are the cause of his demise. They are the cause of that man losing his life. The Prophet ﷺ, he spoke in a way of rebuking them, of scolding them, the Sahaba. He was very upset. He wasn't upset, I want you to understand the hadith. He wasn't upset simply because of the man died. Why was Nabi ﷺ upset with the Sahaba that day? He said, أَلَا سَأَلُوا إِن لَمْ يَعْلَمُوا. He said that why did they not ask a question if they didn't know the answer? Let me say that again. He said that why did they not ask a question if they didn't know the answer? Remember, I began my khutbah by telling you that why is it so common that children ask questions? Elementary school, middle school, once you get to high school, you're in college, you either think you know it all or you frankly don't care. And this is a problem. This is not a small problem. This is musibah kabira. And this is the reason why people will end up in Jahannam. And I told you the ayah from Surah Al-Mulk about that. The Prophet ﷺ, he was extremely upset that he said, أَلَا سَأَلُوا إِن لَمْ يَعْلَمُوا. That why did they not ask if they didn't know? The point is that the believer, he always has a passion for learning. He never stops striving in the path of Allah Ta'ala, learning and teaching. Don't think, brothers and sisters, that you're ever too old or you ever know too much or you're from a certain school or from a certain place and you don't need to know. The blessing of intellect Allah Ta'ala gave us, and this is something that we should use until we leave this dunya. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then he said to the Sahaba that day, he said, إِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِي السُّؤَالِ. Let me say that again. This is a very powerful statement of the Prophet ﷺ. Everybody should remember this. He said, إِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِي السُّؤَالِ. What does that mean? The key here, in this jumla here, in this sentence, is his word, his usage of the word shifa. We only use this word, brothers and sisters, when somebody says, "Oh Imam, can you please make dua? My mother is sick in the hospital." "Oh Imam, can you please make dua? So-and-so was in a car accident. It was a bad car accident. He's in the hospital. He's injured. We need Allah Ta'ala to help this man. Give him health and well-being." In this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he's using it in a different way. And I want you to remember that way. He said, إِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِي. He says the same thing. He says that the cure or the remedy of what? Al-'i. Ibn Manzur, rahimahullah, who is the author of Lisan al-Arab. He says the meaning of this word al-'i is that it is for somebody who does not know how to properly articulate themselves. This is one of the meanings. He says it's for somebody who may not even know the answer to a situation in life. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said that إِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِي. He said that he basically, he's describing somebody who is al-'i as somebody who is marid. He's saying that somebody who doesn't know the answer to something, someone who cannot articulate a response to something. This man, he's suffering from illness. This man, he's suffering from a malady. This man, he has an ailment that must be cured. In other words, jahl. Jahl, al-jahala. The Prophet ﷺ, he literally said, إِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِي السُّؤَالِ. And the remedy, the cure for being an ignorant person, for not knowing the answer, for not being able to articulate something, he said, is as-su'al. Is that thing which most of us nowadays, we either too shy to ask, or we don't take the time to ask. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was telling the Sahaba that he was guiding them, that in your life, there will always be times. You will find times in your life when you don't know the answer. And what you are called to do as believers is to, one, is have the passion to learn, the curiosity to seek out that what does Allah Ta'ala want for me in my life today? If I'm a businessman, how do I deal with business? If I'm a married man, how do I deal with my wife? If I'm a student, how does a student behave? Whatever your situation is in life, right? Allah Ta'ala wants you to have a passion to learn, wants you to seek that knowledge, wants you to strive with your intellect. This is why the Prophet ﷺ said that إِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِي السُّؤَالِ. So my point is, my brothers and sisters, in this day and era that we live in, we do see curiosity in the youth. We see them being sent off to school in the month of September. We all want to send our kids either to a madrasa, to a ma'had, to some school to learn. Many of us, unfortunately, we send our kids to public schools. And we say, go and learn, because you're a kid. What about us? Where is the exemption that after the age of 13, 14, 15, you no longer need to learn? It's just complete ignorance for you to even think this way. You know, I've known Maulana Ahfaz for many years. We go back many years, and I had not been to this center in a long time, maybe a year, 2 years, I can't remember. I walked in, and this musalla area was, mashallah, enlarged and beautified and made, mashallah, the 5 daily prayers. And I'm like, this is a gem. A place that was established, what? Just for little children to come and learn? Is that right? Is it a place for just little children to come, 13 and below, and come and learn? No! This is a ma'had. It's a place that regardless of your age, each and every one of you should be making the time to come and learn. Whether you're a businessman, a married man, graduate of whatever school, this is a center of learning. And there's many centers of learning. This is what Allah Ta'ala is calling for when He said about the people of Jahannam. وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ نَعْقِلُ مَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. If we had only used our ears, the listening, and our intellect, we would not be people of Jahannam. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? He said that إِنَّمَا شِفَاءُ الْعِي السُّؤَالِ. We ask Allah Ta'ala to bless and guide each and every one of us. The month of Rabi al-Awwal coming to an end. Also just a reminder that, when it came to learning about the Prophet ﷺ and his seerah, right? The Sahaba, they were very keen about that. There are many narrations, the hadith of Al-Bukhari, Muslim, others. Umar al-Khattab, he said, Kuntu ana wajarun li. He said that me and my neighbor, he used to have a neighbor. And these people, they lived in the east side of Al-Madinah Munawwara, in the highland area. It was not always easy to come. Kunna natanawab. That we used to come and we used to take turns visiting Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Meaning, we were busy people, we didn't have time to come every day. We had to go, we had business, we had school, we had other things to do. Families, we couldn't come every day. He said that kuntu ana wajarun li, that me and my neighbor, we literally natanawab, that we took turns. He would come one day, I would come another day. Why? To visit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the purpose of knowledge. For the purpose of knowledge. If the Sahaba can make that type of commitment to seeking knowledge, coming and being in the suhbah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, learning about his ahadith and his seerah, what about us today? Can you at least do that? If you cannot come every day, make the intention, come every other day. Say, I'm like Umar al-Khattab, I'm like Itab. I'll come every other day. I'll come every third day. What your schedule will allow. And Allah Ta'ala will put barakah in your time. We ask Allah Ta'ala to bless each and every one of us. Subhanakam shadu wa la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.